presentations, very interesting panel discussions. And today, I would like to welcome you for the same and what I believe it will be an even better conference program and more interesting, more interactive. We have an excellent presenters today who are joining us from different parts of the world. We will introduce them to you one by one during the course of the both sessions. With no further ado, I would like to start with session 3, as it is announced in the program today. I will explain very briefly again about the format of the forum today as it was yesterday. In each session, we will hear 4 presenters. Each one, of course, has a prepared, very interesting content and presentation based on personal experience, expertise, research work, or their business activity. We will give the word for everyone to present himself, his work, and his experience, share their thoughts with us. And of course, after that, we will join in for a panel discussion, Q&A session. I very much encourage all of you who are in front of your screens anywhere around the world, joining us and watching. Do not hesitate to use the Q&A feature on your screens. Send on your questions to the speakers. They'll be happy to answer. Later on, this event, the full recordings will be sent to several hundred people. I know that many people will be joining and will be seeing that offline. After that, on demand, we have a lot of inquiries, a lot of requests. With that being said, I would like to give a start to the first session and introduce our first presenter for today, Mr. Kelvin Valia, joining us from South Africa and from Johannesburg. Kelvin is a full professor of business information and vice dean at the University of Johannesburg. Kelvin has a very extensive experience. He's been working as a senior researcher at Samsung Electronics in South Korea. He's been giving numerous presentations and keynote speeches at topics surrounding the BPaaS, smart cities, e-government, blockchain. I'm sure Kelvin has a lot to share with us today. His current research interests include e-government again, fog computing, ambient intelligence, business process automation. And Kelvin is also active in the private sector, through his own company, which I will let him introduce later on and tell us a few words about it. Kelvin, the word is yours. The room is yours, so to say.
Okay, just a moment. I'm getting on.
That will be perfectly fine. We see your presentation.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you very much, Pleslav. I know I've got 15 minutes in which to share my slides. I'm from the University of Johannesburg. I'm a professor there. I do research in different things. And first of all, I research in e-government, now talking about AI augmented government. And as you know, many African countries are busy trying to come up with different interoperability frameworks in order to implement
Kelvin, did we lose you? Hello?
approach. So I'll talk about the configuration of e-government systems and just to show you what we are doing in e-government systems, in smart city designs. And we are looking at smart city as one of the key points for contemporary e-government systems. Without smart cities, you cannot have what is called spatial intelligence, where data can be accessed at any point and at any time that a human being wants to use it to make decisions. But in order to get to that, we also need to look at the policy considerations. We need to look at the technical considerations. I want to give an example that in the SADC region, I just learned that there isn't any technical interoperability framework for system integration. And that's a very big gap that needs to be sorted. So as I've said, my research focus is mostly augmented government, and especially looking at blockchains. How can we use blockchains in government systems in order to reduce corruption, in order to increase accountability in government systems, and in order to improve what is called responsiveness in government systems. So specifically looking at robotic process automation as one of the technology responses to designing intelligent e-government systems. And I've also been interested in information routing protocols in order to understand how information moves from point A to point B. So when you look at the focus areas of my research, I look at the design of topologies and information architectures. And why we look at that, we believe that in order to understand, to come up with innovations in smart cities, you need to understand the underlying principles, the fundamental principles that guide the different designs that are coming out of smart cities. In very intelligent cities like Barcelona, you see that they're now moving towards achieving a real vehicle-to-vehicle communication information infrastructure where vehicles are able to communicate even without the knowledge of the drivers. So we're talking about autonomous vehicles. We're also talking about non-autonomous vehicles. Vehicles have to communicate in order to make decisions on the environment. This is a topic in intelligent transport systems. African countries like South Africa have also started looking at this area. And I think it's something that we need to look at. I've already said I look at robotic process automation in e-government, designing e-government systems which are intelligent, systems cities. And by spatial intelligence, we mean information has to be available everywhere at any time and at any point, so that different agents in the information environment, such as vehicles, such as people, are able to make decisions and information-based decisions at any point. And that's when you can only achieve intelligence. You cannot achieve intelligence if you don't have underlying information. Aspect, you are also looking at the softer side, the management aspects. You are looking at environmental impacts of the smart cities and the deployment of intelligent systems. You are also looking at the government itself. The government is the main key driver of smart cities. So you're asking yourself, what policies do they have? What institutional frameworks do they have in order to promote the implementation of smart cities? So in the next slide, I just wanted to show the baseline technologies that are used for smart cities. I've already said smart cities falls within the broader picture of AI augmented government, where government systems are able to automatically respond to information needs of the citizens and businesses, and also make intelligent decisions. For example, you apply for a passport, by the system is going to scan the information that you've provided, and you don't have to wait for a human being in order for a final decision to be made, because these systems are able to learn from the data that has been given to them beforehand. So there are key technologies that I focus on in order to achieve whatever I'm looking at. Of course, the autonomous vehicles and drones, vehicular networks, the concept of networks, mobile agents, something that I'm looking for, and also vehicle-to-vehicle communication. What are the communication protocols that are used in order for vehicles to communicate? Also looking at cloud computing, external storage of information, and now we're talking about fog computing, where computation modeling is done closer to the data. So you're looking at that, and we've got expertise in that, and we are coming up with designs which employ fog computing. Also, the Internet of Things, where objects are interconnected, and now we're talking about Internet of Everything, where all the entities in an information system are connected. Also, blockchain, which I've already talked about, and AI. In order to understand how information moves from one place to the other, we're also looking at what is called an information architecture. And IBM has clearly said that without an information architecture, you cannot achieve you cannot achieve artificial intelligence. So we look at a progressive approach of managing data and information, asking ourselves what kind of data we have, where is it located, what kind of computational models do we use in order to implement whatever we want to implement. Is it fog computing? Is it cloud computing? How do you access it? What is the access path? How do you get to the data? And what are the networks, that information networks that you need to have in order for the information to flow? So in designing vehicle-to-vehicle communication, we look at all those things. So in our research, we've come up with models, and some of these models are geared at achieving what I've already talked about, which is spatial intelligence. We've come up with an Internet of Vehicle architecture. And this architecture has 3 different modules. The sensing module, how does information
Kelvin, I think we might have some connection problem with you. Let's give it a second. Kelvin, do you hear us? All right. I hope everyone else can hear me, but it looks like Kelvin has lost connection with us.
Yes, I can hear you, Prisla.
Yes,
Excellent.
I can hear you.
Kelvin, are you there with us? All right. If we don't hear back from Kelvin in the next few seconds, I would like to ask that we will continue. These are the risks of the live stream and connections, but I think we lost Kelvin for a second. For now, he will join us later on. I'm sure that he will recover the connection back. But in that case, I already asked our speakers to be ready to join us, the rest of the speakers in the session to be ready to join us and to take over and to continue. And we have planned, however, for the second to be in line to be Mr. Jabu Madlala, who is the founder of African Smart Cities. I had a very interesting conversation with Jabu some time ago when we first met. He told me about the initiative, about what they do. Jabu, I would like to suggest that you continue, that you take over from here, and when Kelvin will join us back online, we will give you the word. Oh, Kelvin.
Here. Maybe I can, let me try to finish up.
Yes, Kelvin, of course, please. We thought that it will take more time. Please go ahead with your presentation. Continue with your presentation. It happens.
Okay. Thank you. I got disconnected here at when I was explaining the idea of this graph theory from discrete mathematics. So we're using those fundamental concepts in order to understand how information moves from one place to the other. I'm just trying to demonstrate that we've got expertise in that area on this one. And then when we get to the next slide, let me, when we get to the next slide, as this, we've designed what is called a blueprint in smart cities, which we call the e-government as a service model. And it has different modules in this one, blockchain, it has the robotic process automation, IoT, backbone infrastructure, and all these. So our research gives descriptions of each of these modules. So I think it's not the purpose of this presentation to go into the details. Now, I also wanted to look at the policy considerations that African governments need to look at. There's even now as we speak, there's a problem of integration of different systems, which are called heterogeneous systems. How do governments come up with an interoperability frameworks in order for different systems to communicate? We're also talking about there's missing Africa-wide, or as I said, in the SADC region, there are no integration, information integration or technology integration frameworks. So there is also need to promote the development of Africa technological governance structures. Technological leadership is lacking in Africa, especially as we move to the fourth industrial revolution. We need that tech leadership in order to support the different innovations. Also, as you use different types of technologies, there are different risks that come out from using those technologies. How do we manage those? Also, how do we come up with responsive and responsible technology policies to drive technological revolution in Africa? Also, talking broadly, there's limited R&D in Africa, there's limited technology innovation, and everybody knows about it. How do we ensure that we have deliberate policies in order, policies that go to promoting development of technical expertise? So for example, how do you promote policies that promote basic research funding? How the African governments and different stakeholders need to come up with funding in order to erect large infrastructure development programs. And also, how do they promote PPPs at national and international level? They talk about it, but on the ground, it's not happening. And also the establishment of knowledge hubs. This is very important. And if these technological innovations are put on the table, you also need to market them. People have to be aware about them. In many African countries where I've done research and consultants on e-government, some have got systems where users, anticipated users, the citizenry, do not understand that such systems exist. Also, the question of data and ethics, when you use a lot of machines in your innovations, especially in smart city deployments, how do you look at that aspect? How do you ensure that there is amicable man-machine relationships when you deploy machines? And also need to create those conducive data environments by opening up the data, promoting what is called data governance, so that we can have big data analytics and predictive analytics in a real environment, so that we can also achieve the machine learning optimization. Also, the policy framework to support technological innovations. These are the large themes on which policy and technological considerations need to be looked at, but they are determined by the context in which they are applied. So you can't just copy policies from the global north, say, let's get policies from Canada and implement them in Africa. That does not work. The context is very important. If you can't copy smart city designs that have been done in Europe, bringing them to Africa, you have to look at the context. We've got a different technological and policy regimes in Africa. Therefore, we need to consider what context in which we operate in. So that was the end of my presentation, Prislav, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Calvin, thank you very much for the presentation. We'll be back with you at the panel discussion. I have a couple of questions already in my head for you. And as I already started introducing during the little technical disruption, I started introducing our next presenter, Mr. McDonald Ndovi, who's joining us, I believe, from Durban, again from South Africa. Oh no, I'm sorry, McDonald will be after that. You excuse me, I also got confused. I would like to introduce Jabu Madlala, who's joining us from Durban, from South Africa. My colleagues will pass the screen to Jabu Madlala, and I would like to ask him to present himself. He's got so many activities, so much under his belt in terms of involvement in different organizations, different activities. And I'd like to ask him to tell us more about the organization and his work. Jabu, the word is yours.
Sorry, I was, can you hear me? Good morning.
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, thank you very much. Hey, thanks for this opportunity. I'm sure Prophet challenge, I'm not sure if it's raining in Johannesburg, but in Durban, it's raining and pouring. So maybe that's why there were some challenges with the connection there. But if you can hear me well, yeah, thank you very much. My name is Jabu Madlala, and I'm the founder of a company called African Smart Cities. And African Smart Cities, I will share with you what we're all about. You know, in addition to just being an advisory firm to governments across the continent, we also take equity stakes in various companies that are aligned to our vision, and the vision of making Africa great again, and that is our vision. You know, and changing slums to towns, and changing towns to cities, and that's really what we want to achieve really at the end. So, but thank you for this opportunity, and I will start just by you know, asking a big question here, you know, in terms of how big, you know, is this continent that we are talking about when you talk about smart cities. You know, again, you'll agree with me that we're talking of a continent with over 50 countries, over 500 metros that have a population between 100 and 10 million. We're talking about over 10,000 towns, population of less than 100K. We're talking over 1 billion people, and then so on and so on. I think everybody here will add their own statistics in terms of how big, but we're talking of a really big continent, and there's no reason why we should not have Africa be the leaders in the global smart cities. You know, as the situation it is at the moment, that Africa still left behind. And I think we'll explore here in this today, and some of the challenges and some of the solutions as we see them in terms of trying to advance Africa, African governments, African cities to become in the top leaderboard of the global cities that are known, you know, across both developed and emerging countries. So you'll agree with me, and many of you, I'm sure you've seen this slide, and this slide really presents really the true size of the continent. We're talking of a big continent. So when we talk about smart cities, we talk about cities, and we talk about the cities most likely that are included in some of those in the continent here. You know, if you look at the US, you look at China, you look at all the different countries. If you take the top 50 list of smart cities, most likely you see them, they feature here. So if we are focused in really trying to develop smart cities out of this continent, that is really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the continent, the countries and the cities within this continent to also compete with any of the smart cities that are located in other parts of the world. And so there's no reason why Africa cannot really compete. And some numbers, you know, I want to share with you without boring you. We know very well half the planet lives in the cities. This is a serious concern, and 2/3 of the world's population continues to be urbanized, and there's still the migration continues from the rural areas into the cities. You know, it's really a big concern from an environment, from the development, from managing the cities, from transforming cities, and from what they are, and trying to get them to be smart. Because you got to deal with this population, you got to deal with this unemployment, you got to deal with the infrastructure that you need to upgrade as more people are living and coming to, you know, to live in the cities. But what you'll agree with me again is that regardless of whatever city, wherever the city is, anywhere in the world, there are these 6 areas that the cities have to provide. And you'll agree with me that the e-government, Professor did mention a lot about the e-government and how important it is for citizens to have access to. So you'll agree with me that the cities have to provide that. Yesterday, we heard a lot about the energy management and the energy, different type of energy, the mini grids and all sort of things, and everybody we know very well is moving towards the renewable energy space. The urban mobility, Professor did mention on the mobility also, that you know, even countries in the modern in the modern country like the US have taken a decision that by a certain year they're not going to be selling or producing any vehicle that is not electric vehicle. So we see those decisions being taken, and so we're going to see less and less of fossil fuel based waste and water management and others. So, you know, being the core. So every city that we see, whether it's emerging or developed, is faced with implementing these services to its citizens. But what are the problems that are faced again? I may have mentioned some of them, and migration from the rural areas into the cities, from one country to another country. Now we're talking in the African context here. Obviously, underdevelopment is still a problem. We have this migration, and then we have underdevelopment. We have high unemployment. People are, you know, the limitation of urban spaces that the governments need to either develop, redevelop the cities or the urban areas. And again, the lack of attracting investments in rural towns really forces a lot of people to move out of those rural towns and go to the urban areas, because most of the rural cities or towns just cannot attract investment, cannot retain good talent, good people, and the challenge that is faced again by the many cities is duplication. There's a lot of duplication, too many investment promotion agencies, again caused by everybody, you know, is looking for, is chasing for the same access to what we call DFI, you know, foreign direct investment, FDIs. And everyone is chasing, every city has got somebody looking, everybody wants to develop the roads, every city wants to develop. And so we have all these investment promotion agencies in Africa. Every country I know has a team of investment promotion agencies chasing for investments. And at the local government, at the state or provincial government, at national governments, across all spheres of government. We see all of this, and this creates a problem because there's only limited resources, limited investors, limited financing that is available. And unfortunately, Africa does not take the front seat when it comes to this type of investments that is needed for infrastructure development. And again, that's the challenge. We have the developed countries, and then we've got the developing countries on one side, where obviously Africa sits there, and where the developed countries are pushing and offering the services to the developing countries, and the developing countries are the ones that own the projects and that require the development, they require the infrastructure and all of this stuff. But regardless, anywhere in the continent, any city in the continent, local governments would always be local government. And as I said before, they've got a service to render, and they are focused in providing that infrastructure. They would like to see the quality of life of its citizens. They want a clean and sustainable environment. And they want all those digital and smart solutions that yesterday were discussed, and that today they're still going to be discussed in terms of smart solutions. But typically, that's an average sort of, this is a structure of most of this government, where again, because they are focused on there's a council in this local government, there's a mayor in this local government. So every city will have a structure similar to this, with a council, a mayor, and so on, and the operations management. And this is the core of these cities that needs to drive the smart cities, the development of smart cities in their towns or in their cities across the continent. So just to go back a little bit about us, and I'm not going to bore you. We offer a unique blend in terms of strategy and some research and design in relative and these local governments and towns and municipalities, districts or states, in helping them develop to become smart cities, to make sure that we lead them and guide them in the right. Can you hear me? Yeah, we're in the right direction. We have a team of very skilled and highly professional. And this year, for example, we're extending a call for cities to participate in our what you call a top 50 smart city program, which I'm going to talk to you about, which is really a solution that we offer to mayors across Africa. And it's really a call to them, the mayors, are promising the new way of engaging the citizen, because that's what the mayors want to see. So our program, that's what it does. And we offer the city leaders guidance and assistance in really getting their local governments ready to become really smart, because you cannot just become a smart city. You need a plan, you need a policy. Prof just mentioned earlier on, you need a policy, and the policy needs to guide you how you're going to move forward. And so within our program, then we offer this guidance to these leaders, and which results in eventually in an independent ranking, which we produce what we call a top 50 African smart city governments, which is really would be the first, I think, for Africa to have this program and this type of ranking here, or rather an index, which I mentioned. And we believe that many villages, towns, they all have ambition. Nobody wants to stay in a slum. Nobody wants to stay in a village. Nobody wants to stay in a town. Nobody wants to stay in a city. Everybody, aspire to live in a smart city of some sort, And many mayors have ambitions for their, local governments, at least to elevate their governments, at some point to becoming, I see the smallest of the smallest towns and local governments, and trying to develop, strategies and in elevating there. But it is a challenge to get there. And already corruption, some of it stalls some of this redevelopment or some of the greenfield, which becomes. So our solution really and the business model really is creating an environment where cities can compete for limited resources, which are mainly investments. So the cities have to compete with each other in the whole continent, because otherwise it's impossible for every city to attract investments. So they have to compete. They need to showcase what they are doing to the global investors. This is the only way they can attract investments. So we can talk about technology, about everything, but if there's the environment and the policy and the strategy environment is not ready and conducive, where there is a plan, a proper plan that moves them from point A to point C, there is no way they'll be able to attract these investments. And if we cannot attract investments, there's no way they will become these smart cities. It will be a pipe dream. 10 years, 20 years from today, we'll still be talking about smart cities when actually we should not be. So our solution really is about around developing and implementing a common standard metrics for African cities, and which links into KPIs that are aligned to other global KPIs, so that at the end of the day, we're not just measuring Africa cities, but we're measuring them along the same lines as how other global smart cities are being ranked. So then we benchmark the cities within the countries. In other words, if you're in Nigeria, you do the states, and then you do the cities and all of that. Or if you're in another country or province or whatever, you benchmark those within the country. So you let the countries, that is cities within country, compete for the limited resources. And then we develop what you call the top smart cities within the countries. And then you do the same thing with using the same metrics, using the same KPIs. You start get the countries now to compete within the continent. And then we come up with a top 50 smart cities within the continent. Again, using the same metrics, then you build your global. And then we have now the African cities, which came through a process, and then to compete with many other global smart cities like Barcelona, San Francisco, and others in Singapore and all of that. And
Jabu,
in this way, obviously, yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting this way. I would like to ask you towards the time, 5 more minutes, so we have time for Q&A for the rest of the people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you. So again, by this model, it attracts talent, attracts investments into the thing, but it starts with a strategy. These local governments have to have a strategy in place, so assist them in developing the strategy and make sure the strategy is aligned to their development plans. And then once you have that strategy for the smart city, then obviously you need to look at is an ICT strategy where all the digital stuff is defined, and then that has to be aligned within the city, because this is a starting block. Obviously, policy have to be in place and all of that. And then once you have all these components revised and aligned, then that's when now you begin to move into and looking at how you're going to develop the thing. Is it a greenfield city that you're going to develop? Are you going to redevelop is it the redevelopment approach that you're going to take? How are you going to do it? Then you move into a methodology which really uses the metrics that I mentioned in terms of the top 50 at different levels and then within the continent. But these are some of the elements that we look at in terms of developing these smart cities. Some of them I've mentioned, and obviously the model is really to look at the current situation and move them to a new state, and using the maturity measurement model within the local government. And then obviously we have a set of standard performance metrics that we use and which cuts across the various areas here, the energy, the healthcare, and the quality of life, and all of that, which I've mentioned. And these are used in the same, and this is what we benchmark across, whether you're doing at the country level or at the continent or the global. And then we use various dimensions that we look at, where the arrows are, and the various dimensions that we look at in a model, which we a maturity model framework that we have developed. And you go through then the process of analyzing the cities and ranking the cities, and in this way here we develop the index for Africa, which will be, without the index, very difficult to benchmark or to measure against, and we use some kind of a selection process at a different levels to come up with this top 50. Eventually, we have some kind of a ranking where each bubble will show the city, and every year on year, each city will see how it moves and how big the bubble becomes, and whether it's sitting on the bottom or top right or top or bottom or right hand side. And it's important that we have this monitoring that happens within the cities. Otherwise, there's no way from country to Africa to global. And then here, eventually, once you become global, then you mix with all the other cities in the world. And there's so many benefits to this model. And as I said, it attracts investments, it attracts talents, it improves the skills and employment in each country. So we invite every city to get involved and participate in some of these programs. This program, which is the first of its kind, which is the top 50 Africa Smart City, and we can obviously all have a vision to make African cities great. And I thank you very much.
Thank you so very much as well for your presentation, Jabu. Very well, very interesting. I have several questions, though these are similar questions, which I have to say I had yesterday to the panelists yesterday who were joining us during the 2 sessions yesterday. But we will continue with that, and that's why I'm sorry I interrupted you to ask you, so we can keep the time in a reasonable, so to say, limit. And with that, I would like to continue with our next presenter and to introduce from the beautiful Harare, who's joining us, Mr. McDonald Ndovi. McDonald is a business development manager for CloudSuite. He's got so many professional qualifications that I know from his profile that I received. He's a technology consultant for EMEA, route to market specialist, business process transformation expert, process analyst, certified marketing practitioner. I will leave it, I won't take more of the time. I can speak more, but I would like to pass it to McDonald. He's going to tell us a little bit more. I hope the weather is not that bad and the connection is good with Harare. McDonald, it's your
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Can see my slides? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you and we see the slides.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank everyone of my predecessor presenters, and I would also like to thank Jabu. I think he had done me a lot of favor by sharing quite so much information, which I'll also maybe share from another angle. My topic, yes, is we are discussing the green energy, the smart city, smart cities, but is Africa ready? Yes, it might be ready, one smart city at a time towards the smart cities of Africa. I will not bother you with my profiles. I think Preserve has already talked about it. I believe as Africa, this is where we are. We are in a state of maybe confusion, where everything is coming up from all different angles. And of course, it's good to plan a lot of books and maybe a little bit of execution. But the smart city, the picture, I think on my right, on your left, that's where we all want to be. A smart Africa and a smart cities across Africa. I will take my discussion points based on these questions. Smart cities: can Africa leapfrog its current city programs, introducing smart city technology? Or cities as the engine of wealth creation? What makes a livable city? And getting the infrastructure right. Are we moving towards innovation, disruption, and as well as creativity? Coming back to the first question, smart city: can Africa leapfrog its current city programs, introducing the smart city technology? I believe that you can leapfrog technology, but if you don't take into consideration the human behavior, the culture, and the processes, even the attitude, it might be a difficult task ahead. Am I saying we cannot achieve smart cities in Africa? No, I'm saying we can, and we should achieve smart cities across Africa. But however, we really need to create an ecosystem where we, the designers of the smart city, as we design and embrace smart cities across Africa, whether at a city level or at a state level, yes, we also need to incorporate and assess how the change management is within the human behavior. How do we incorporate the different cultures within Africa in order to have an adoption of smart cities? And how also do we enhance the processes so that they're adaptable to environment? Why do I say that? You can maybe agree with me that a number of African cities, it is even still difficult for the adoption of other smart digital solutions. It might be a smartphone, or it's still maybe difficult in other cities across Africa. So we really need to take into consideration the adoption and also the inclusiveness of the human behavior, the culture, and the processes. Coming back to number two, the question two, cities as the engine of wealth creation. We have witnessed it in Africa that cities are the engine of wealth creation. Like what Jabu has said, African population is about, of course, 1.3 billion, and it's expected to double by 2050. And 80% of that growth will be in cities. So there is viable, we really need to develop smart cities, because the cities are the places that generate wealth, and they also generate employability. But what makes a livable city? On my research, I think a livable city will be a dynamic city with economy that generates jobs, a city that is clean, green, and sustainable, an inclusive and engaged city, a safe and attractive city. So how, in developing our smart cities, can we get the infrastructure right? I think we need to enhance the connectivity. most of the African countries are still lagging behind with the reliable internet services. And I think with the COVID-19, we've witnessed that gap and that lag. The communication and transportation services, and also the links, the general service delivery, energy and utilities are also still something which needs to be enhanced within Africa. But how do we go maybe from now and beyond, and how do we enhance innovation, disruption, and also creativity as we create smart cities? I think we are seeing the emergence of innovative countries and also innovative cities across Africa, the likes of Kigali, the likes of Cape Town, for example. We have also seen Kinshasa coming up with good models of smart cities. We are also seeing innovation, although it is still needed in most of the public sector at a state level and at a city level. But we have also seen partnership between private sector and cities towards smart cities. I think we can allude to what Jabu was also saying. We are also seeing partnerships of academia and cities. I think you can see my predecessor from the University of Johannesburg tried to talk more about different models and the incorporation of government models within what they are trying to do. We have also seen the emergence of tech hubs and startups, which are also becoming in partnerships within different cities. So I believe now and beyond, there's yes, still gaps within the African cities and African state, but if we introduce inclusion in all environment and in all facets, I believe Africa is ready for smart cities, because with the new normal of living, and also taking into consideration that the new technology is coming, the electric cars are coming, and other subsequent technology are also coming. I believe Africa is ready, but what is needed and of most important in my conclusion is we really need the inclusion factor of adopting and also creating Africa as we develop our smart cities as an ecosystem, but also try to understand its environment and incorporating its culture, and also understanding the human behavior, then incorporating it in our models and processes. I rest my case. I thank you.
McDonald, thank you very much. Thank you for the input. I'm sure that everyone agrees with your last words and the conclusions you put. And with that, I'm asking you to stay with us. Yes, indeed, there has to be a better way to do this. Thank you. With your last slide, I would like to invite our next presenter, who I'm very much looking forward to, since I spoke with him over a month ago. From Dubai, joining us, Jatin Lat. He's a founder and CEO of Stratch Technologies. I believe a very recent establishment. Jatin's going to tell us about it very soon. There's so much to say about him. He's a leader and advisor on smart cities covering platforms, big data management, IoT and engineering. He's been delivering very successful projects in Melbourne, Singapore, in Cairo, in Doha, in Dubai. Those are, I know that from what I read about him, a very successful, award-winning projects on smart city technologies, projects that use smart city technologies and strategies on delivering OPEX savings and efficiency. Jatin, I will leave it here. I'll leave it to you to tell us more about your work, about Strach Technologies. Room, as I like to say, is yours.
Thank you, Preslav. Let me just quickly share my screen. All right, can you guys see this?
Yes, we have you.
All right, just
You can make it a full screen, just.
Yeah, just a minute. Is this better? Can you see this?
Didn't work out. We see the screen. It's not a full screen. Go on, continue. We will deliver.
All right.
We will deliver the
Okay,
presentation.
just 1 minute. I'm sorry.
All the presentations will be delivered after that. There's several hundred people who purchased it will be seen offline the event, but all the recordings, everything will be seen.
Sure. Is this a full screen now?
Indeed, yes.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm guessing there are people from all over the place, all over the world. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Firstly, let me thank Preslav and the team organizing this event. It's a great event, and any focus on smart cities is something I'm always keen on and interested in. So, look, from an introduction point of view, Preslav's already said a lot. Please, I'm not as great. I'm still a work in progress, and I continue to work and learn each day. And yeah, I've been fortunate to be part of some of the great smart city projects across the world, and continue to be doing that. Also look forward to working in Africa at some point and provide my expertise and whatever knowledge I have, sharing that with some of the cities coming up in Africa. So look, today through this presentation, I would cover the dimensions, some use cases, touching on the benefits of smart cities. And finally, I'm going to be diving into the comparisons of different smart city deployments in Europe and Middle East. Right, so okay. So what is a smart city, right? So a smart city is basically a city that uses technology to provide services and solve problems across the city. It does improve upon transportation and accessibility, improving social services, promoting sustainability, and most importantly, giving its citizens a voice. So when we're talking about smart cities, there are certain features such as, supply of electricity and water, sanitation and managing waste, mobility and public transport, affordable housing, robust connectivity and digitization, and to top it all, the good governance and especially e-governance that comes into play with citizen participation. So these are typically the features of a smart city. And, when we dive into the various dimensions, as you see on the screen, you have the ICT dimension, which is a critical aspect. You have the Wi-Fi coming out of it, the cloud services, the wayfinding, geographical information systems. You have the environmental meterings and air quality and disposable and recycling. Then we have the smart governance, which is looking at open data and data laws and citizen IDs and so on. And you have smart infrastructure, smart living, and there's many aspects that go with the smart city. So when you look at a smart city delivery framework, it brings all these dimensions together, and you have various assets and information from multiple entities that are connected onto a centralized smart city platform. So data is collected, it's fused, refined, analyzed from various government entities as well as private sector, third parties. And this data empowers multiple apps for citizens, which you can see on the top, which can be things such as healthcare, mobility, security, education, and then further on providing visualization and dashboarding capabilities, which can be used for efficient operations of the city and management. So this basic architecture, then you have all the different use cases that go with the smart cities. I mean, this is just an introduction on smart cities, and I know the earlier presented also talked about all of these. Just to quickly run through them, you have the smart districts, where you have a smart district is basically a small mid-size development, a mixed-use development within a city, which is smart, interconnected, interoperable, and so on, which promotes sustainability, reduces energy cost, looks at building safety, environmental sustainability, so on. You have utilities where you look at the electricity metering to collect and analyze energy use, water use in real time, minimize the consumption, and so on. Water efficiency included in that. You have the smart security, which is basically about real-time situational awareness, protection of critical infrastructure. You have connected campuses and smart e-learning classrooms, which can be implemented from an education standpoint. You have the healthcare, which promotes the telehealth, the e-health, the remote monitoring of the elderly for diseases, and basically remote hospitals and connected hospitals that come into play. And then you have the IoT and the data enablement layer, which is a use case in itself, which can be applicable to various other aspects of the smart city, including some of the ones that I talked about before, but also things like parking and waste and parks and fleet management, noise detection, air quality, water quality, and so on. So what we've seen so far is all the different aspects of a smart city, and we've looked at the dimensions and use cases which show us what can be. However, in order for these to be implemented in a real life scenario, we look at some of the cities that have implemented smart city programs. These cities profile themselves as smart, but they deploy vastly different approaches to becoming a smart city. So let's explore these approaches these cities took, which will show us the commonalities and differences in patterns and principles for design and governance that are used. So we shall look at the design choices made, the development pathways adopted. Since these projects are in different geographical regions, these are different styles of policy making, planning, differences in culture, and even political system. So this particular graphic that you see is a very, very simplistic view of the process. In order to keep, in order to make sure everything's done in time, I've kind of put it to make it simpler to understand. So you have the resources and inputs, which is the first step towards starting off the smart city, where you look at the human resources, the entrepreneurships, the data that's already available, what sort of ICT and technology frameworks available, what sort of financial resources are put in place. Then we look at the dynamic actions, where these are continuous actions that a city has to take in order to make things happen, and things such as infrastructure, looking at upgrading the knowledge and the innovation. I'm sorry, did someone say something?
No, that's perfectly fine.
All right, okay, no, I just heard somebody asking something. All right, so you have the dynamic actions on that side, and then you have the outcomes. So basically we start off any project with certain outcomes in mind, and those are outcomes. For the sake of this PowerPoint, I've kept it to the mobility, the energy, healthcare, and certain smart elements around the environment. The underlying layer of any smart city is, of course, technology. At the end of the day, it's a platform that's integrating all of these things together. So, which is a very important aspect of the overall overall thing. So moving ahead, so we're going to be looking at 4 different projects. We're looking at the Smart City Amsterdam. We're looking at Barcelona Smart City, looking at Dubai Smart City, and the Masdar City. The 3 out of them, Amsterdam, Barcelona, Dubai, are big cities in itself. Masdar City is a smaller development within the city of Abu Dhabi, but has some very unique features that they started out with. So moving on, in terms of Amsterdam Smart City, the Smart City program was set out with a primary goal of reducing CO2 emissions in 2008. The program was started with the focus on smart energy and smart grids by the city of Amsterdam through a 3-year project funded by the EU. For Barcelona, they launched the Smart City in 2011, and it was in association with the European Union strategy to create more sustainable, smart, inclusive path for development. A national plan of smart cities was also introduced with objectives for 5G technology, interoperable virtual labs, smart tourism, public services platform, and rural territory development. For Dubai, the smart city developed from the concept of a smart government. In 2014, an executive office for Smart Dubai program was established to expand the concept to a different areas on the basis of the vision of the ruler of Dubai. The vision was to make Dubai the happiest city in the world. This was to be pursued with the use of smart technology innovations as one of the main tools contributing to creating happiness. And Masdar City project was launched in 2006 in order to develop the world's most sustainable eco-city with the vision of making Abu Dhabi a reference for knowledge and collaboration on the advancement of renewable energy, clean technologies, and sustainable development. The project was funded through the UAE government, Abu Dhabi government, and also in partnership with Mubadala company. So moving on, so what were the resources and inputs that each of these cities had when they started out? So with Amsterdam, the idea was to promote innovation in coordination with the national and EU policies, which were a public-private partnership program for Startup Amsterdam. They also decided to develop their ICT infrastructure. Incidentally, in today's day and age, Amsterdam is in the top 5 best cities in terms of technology infrastructure. They also wanted to develop a single portal for data in Amsterdam, which was established in 2015, which uses big data technology. With Barcelona, the smart city strategy relies on its cyclic and cross-cutting innovation model, which is at the end of the day promoting entrepreneurship. So the establishment of a data office was really important. And again, the project was funded through the Horizon 2020 program of EU. With Dubai, Dubai encouraged startups and innovative companies to set up in Dubai, establishing a significant number of high-tech free zones where 100% ownership of a company was allowed. The Smart Dubai initiative, which is the branding for the Dubai Smart City, was launched to support emerging technologies and entrepreneurs. And the project was funded through Dubai government. Abu Dhabi followed the national strategy for advanced innovation, which targets the establishment of an innovation platform. They wanted to attract innovative companies. Abu Dhabi established a policy for developing several free zones at a large scale and provided, in order to attract them, provided them with high-end locations inside the city to come and set up their offices and so on. Apart from these inputs, there were various other inputs, of course, which were relating to educating, training people, nurturing and innovation, data aggregation, data processing, and each of these have been, you can see out of 3 how they have managed to do that. Some of them focused more on certain areas, some of them focused more on other areas. So that's how they went about it. So in terms of the dynamic actions, Amsterdam had Amsterdam Smart City Platform, ASC, for connecting ideas and challenges between municipalities, partners, and different companies. In 2011, the municipality of Amsterdam governed the platform with more than 70 public and private partners, also introducing an urban living lab. And finally, they have this coordination and communication programs using Open House, which allows the citizens to participate and focuses on data laws and data accessibility. For Barcelona in 2015, the project outcomes pertain to the smart strategy development and implementation, the definition of a governance model and a communication framework, development of the community of citizens and developers, installation of SMEs, experimenting with different living labs. And they also offered an open source policy for citizens to collaborate and governments to be more open and transparent on information and data. The Smart Dubai government structure is based mainly on the visionary leadership and positive approach in developing happiness. So Dubai developed its first AI artificial intelligence lab to support the Dubai's roadmap. And they wanted to infuse AI into the government services and operations. There were comprehensive documents on data authorization, data laws, data policies that were set and are already available and accessible online as of today. From a Masdar point of view, the holistic approach to develop renewable energy and sustainability by creating value chain from research to investment. So Masdar City launched the Sustainability Week, which most of you might have heard, which happens somewhere in the first quarter of every year, where you have a lot of companies from all over the world coming in to Abu Dhabi and participating in the Sustainability Week, where you have politicians and big CEOs coming in to these programs and providing their vision and all the various aspects around energy and sustainability. So it brings together all the policymakers, the industry specialists, the pioneers, and so on. So let's now look at the outcomes that actually happened from building a smart city, right? So in terms of Amsterdam, for mobility, Amsterdam is known as the world capital for cycling, right? So they developed smart mobility solutions through smart bicycling, along with electric car and car sharing in terms of private transportation. They also provide a network platform for public transport and a smartphone application in order for residents and citizens and visitors to use that application when they come visiting Amsterdam. They have, from an energy standpoint, they have a City Zen project, which was launched on urban energy transition to integrate new energy solutions in existing buildings and systems. There are virtual power plants for storage and trade of surplus energy. Then there are other district heating and comfort cooling solutions as part of this project. The other aspect from an automation standpoint was the online platform for people to share projects and initiatives and look for collaboration. Prislav, am I good for time still?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you to wrap it up if you can in the next couple of
Yeah.
minutes.
Give me 2-3 minutes maximum. Yeah, so in terms of Barcelona, the connected mobility, safe and smart mobility for pedestrians and cycling, clean, affordable, efficient public transport, and integrating EVs into the transport system was part of the Barcelona Smart Mobility. Barcelona's energy company also incorporates smart energy with the mission of producing 100% certified renewable energy supply plant. And Barcelona seeks a two-way communication and co-creation of solutions and policies with its citizens. So there's an app for this, and you can do that. Incidentally, with both Amsterdam and Barcelona, the healthcare wasn't included in the initial smart city development process. However, it is now being considered, and the outcomes of that will be available in the next year or so, hopefully. With Dubai, smart mobility projects were mainly limited to smart parking and traffic control, and they're also promoting electric vehicles now as part of their plan. There is, from an energy standpoint, you have the Shams Dubai initiative, which is about installing solar panels across rooftops on buildings and villas and things like that. There is a green building code, which is put in place for energy efficiency. And in order to interact with citizens through mobile phones, you have various applications available in Dubai. And mainly from a healthcare standpoint, you have the DHA, which is Dubai Health Authority, smart applications, which provide services such as patient services, blood donation, medical fitness. In fact, even for the COVID vaccines, we have an app which allows us to book appointments and go to the center and basically have the whole thing done within a matter of 15-20 minutes, which is a great initiative again. From Masdar city, you have the smart transportation policies, where you have the elimination of car use. You have looking at the clean energy worldwide from Masdar point of view, and the objective is to make Abu Dhabi a hub for sustainability and renewable energy. So they have a lot of green building projects with eco villas, solar PV plants, wind towers, and so on. They also have a unified service desk for registration and licensing and complete online things. Masdar is also developing a e-health platform for their residents to make their health better and decisions better. And of course, there are other outcomes that came out of these things as well, which have been put there. Of course, a lot of them are still under development, and the point ratings keep changing as they keep developing on it. So in conclusion, through my talk, my objective was to show that smart city development in Amsterdam is based on business-driven approach, which puts innovation at its core. Masdar's choice reflects technological optimism. Social inclusion is the focus of Barcelona Smart City, and the visionary, ambitious leadership is the main driver behind Smart Dubai. This variety makes their smart city development pathways different, but they also have commonalities. In all cases, smart city development took off in a response to environmental challenges and the need to make the city future-proof. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jatin. Interesting presentation. And since we finished the last with it, I'm going to say one more time, just to everyone who's watching us right now, that all the recordings, all the presentations, the slides will be sent out to really to everyone who's watching live. And I believe there is several times more people who will watch that in recorded session offline after that, as it has been purchased by really many. Jatin, we finished with you, and it was really excellent examples you gave us from your work in cities that come up as an example when one speaks about smart cities. Let's take it 15 minutes of the time. I'll just say before that our next session, one of our presenters actually will be joining just the panel discussion. I hope actually he will be joining us at all, because he told me that he's feeling a bit under the weather today, but it will be a shorter session. We'll make up with the time later. Jatin, from the experience you just mentioned and you were just describing, what do you think are the first steps that African cities should be taking in deploying smart city programs? Because all these things, I've been a lot to Africa, and I believe that many of these programs, everything you mentioned, is somewhere in the distant future for Africa, for majority of African cities. We already know about them, vehicle-to-vehicle programs that earlier Kelvin was speaking, and later Ivan will be talking about as well, and so on. So your first pickups, say, putting it this way.
Look, I would say it's really important to have a strategy in place. The strategy should define all the different aspects of what the vision is. And from that, you need to derive, every city is different, and every city will need very unique services that it caters to. So based on the population, based on development, based on the IT infrastructure. So as a first step, it needs to be a holistic strategy, which includes all these different smart city elements, these dimensions, what's important, what's not, and a proper study in terms of developing a smart city for the future.
Great. And my question goes to the other presenters based on, of course, because they have the on-site experience. They are in Africa, even though in Johannesburg, Durban are one of the most developed and advanced cities in terms of innovation, technologies, mobility. McDonald will agree with me that Harare probably not that much, but definitely getting there. Gentlemen, what would you say? What do you think? How far are these African cities, are your African cities, from competing and implementing these state-of-the-art programs, technologies, innovations?
Preserve, thank you for the opportunity. I think I agree with Jatin, but in some of these African countries, some of them have already produced good documentation, good strategy, and good elements with the vision. I think what's now left with most is the execution drive. And there might be a number of factors which might be contributing to the lack of execution. But I believe everyone in Africa and every government and even every mayor and every head of a city, they are even pro smart cities. Like recently, I think the city of Harare had a delegation maybe going to, I think it last year or 2 years back, going to Barcelona, going to Spain to try to learn on a city-to-city exchanging. So I think the execution and the drive is what is now of key importance. Thank you.
Thank you. Jabu, maybe Jabu will tell us the importance of getting the top, so to say, mayoral, city, municipality buy-in and support when it comes to financing, funding programs and implementing programs. Is Jabu with us? I know he wrote me that he had a problem earlier with the connection. Jabu, are you there? Probably not for the moment.
Hold on, yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, great. Jabu.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do. We don't see you, but we hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I would say this way. Yeah, thanks for asking. I think, yes, there are still challenges. Everything, obviously, there's a lot of competition, which is healthy. And for these countries and for these cities, and but I think a lot of them, I think they lack the coordination and the strategy. And somebody they're so ambitious. You know, you take a local government or that is sitting out of like that is so small, that is like it's very underdeveloped, and they talk about a smart city. You know, it's just a dream. It's my view, you know, for those because you know there's still a long way to go unless they join a program like the one I presented, you know, which seeks to compete. First, they need to compete within themselves. In other words, you have cities. There are 10 cities in a country that all want to become smart cities. There must be a coordinated strategy and a plan, and where they compete against the same metrics and the methodology and some kind of a maturity model. And we need to have an index that is used to measure those and why they are, like the last speaker mentioned, those Barcelonas and the Amsterdams, we cannot be a smart city in everything, and you have to choose your niche. As a city, this is what I think we as a city, we're going to be number one in EVs, we're going to be number one in people, we're going to be number one in this or that. So it's very important. So unless there's a structured program that seeks to elevate and promote, like the program we have, it takes the cities from where they are into competing within themselves, competing within the continent, and competing in Barcelona's and in the global world. So at the moment, unless if they think, a lot of them say they're creating smart cities, but they are not actually smart cities. They're just another big town. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jabu. And I see here on the live chat is joining us Mike Mafemba. And I believe Mike is very right. I will just read it for everyone, though you probably see it. I think it's important to have some town planners on panels. Mike, we're taking a note on that. Definitely gonna secure such presence next time. And let these town planners explain how far they embrace smart cities and what they are planning to do. What are the fears? As much as the private sector may desire, yes, that's right, to bring all these solutions on board, the cities have to be on board to implement. And here, that's why we're like mentioning city municipalities, mayoral commitment agreement, access to funding. Yesterday, you missed it probably, but yesterday we've been speaking about access to funding, availability of funding, a program. As much as the private sector is ready, there's need to be funding. And I'm not sure if somebody's saying something, if somebody's trying to say because it comes as a noise.
Sorry, Prislav.
Give it to you, towards you. Go ahead, Kelvin.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to echo the same sentiments that smart city development is a multi-stakeholder approach. And one thing that we are not mentioning is the resources. We need clear resources in order to fund the smart city approach. And we need to clearly define sources where this money is going to come from. Does it come from PP arrangements, or does it only come from the private sector, or does it only come from the government? All those questions have to be answered. And from where I'm sitting, I'm saying context matters. There are different contextual nuances that we need to take into consideration when we are answering these questions.
I don't think private sector is ready to take over this investment. Private sector is ready to participate, but from my traveling to Africa and being part of over 100 conferences, private sector is definitely interested, but funding probably should be sought by governments and by international finance institutions. I know and I believe, and from what I hear, there is money available. There needs to be a good project planning, good projects available, well presented, and so on. Can you give us example of some smart city applications in your country, and probably from Johannesburg, one of the most developed cities in terms of innovations, though Johannesburg has its own charm as well. But give us something, an example of strategic initiatives that have been done to promote smart cities, coming from your background, vehicle-to-vehicle communication.
You know, in Johannesburg, I can tell you that it's still at the nascent stage, right at the beginning. But there are several initiatives that are being pushed forward, especially with regards to intelligent transport systems. There are some, the government has been trying to invest a lot in upgrading many roads, so that putting in proper ICT infrastructure, especially when you go to the highways, you can see that there's a lot of information that you can get on digital gadgets when you're driving through. Another thing is part of Johannesburg, there's a place called Modefontein. They wanted to develop a smart city, and they actually put proper infrastructure in order to develop the concept of smart cities. But I don't know what's happening. It's because of politics and so forth. This project is now not going forward. So that's why I was saying that you need leadership, you need champions in order to implement smart cities from scratch.
Thank you. And probably a final question from me, because we're talking about Africa, and Africa is mostly rural. And probably my question will not be that much to Jatin. I guess his experience doesn't cover that, but you gentlemen, maybe you can tell me, like, how is a rural-based town, how can rural-based towns, like really towns and places that are like even off-grid in most cases, how can they participate in global, not to say in smart city programs, and what potentially would be the first examples and first projects that can be implemented? I personally can speak, I know a lot of off-grid energy projects in terms of off-grid energy generation, etc., certain type of healthcare services, etc. But from your perspective. Anyone, if you're there? Hello, do we hear each other?
Yeah, yes. Okay. Yes. I think like what I had presented earlier, that most governments in Africa, this planning of sort of like growth points, and growth points in their planning was more sort of like rural satellites or future towns. So I believe, like what I have presented, that it's a matter of strategy and maybe engaging within the state level, and or maybe the provincial city levels, of seeing how those sort of like growth points or growth future cities can be sort of developed. But the important thing, like what I've said, that you can leapfrog technology, but you cannot leapfrog the human behavior, culture, and processes. I think there is a need of inclusion of all factors, because those places, to be fair, some of them they are off-grid, and some of them they are even still adapting to other smart solutions, like a simple smartphone. So there is a need of conscientization of information, and also inclusion, while taking into consideration a number of factors. I think that might be my contribution. Others might contribute as well.
Thank you, McDonald's. Final words on the others as well, maybe final remarks.
The final remarks from my end, if you can hear me, I think, it's nice to talk about the smart cities, but we also need to talk about smart towns. We need to talk about smart villages, because like you said, you have the rural areas, municipalities or local government that are located in, they've got different challenges. They still got, for them to talk about smart cities is something that is really, really far from them. So the only thing they can talk about is how to move from being a slum to become a town. So they can talk about smart towns. And then once they are a smart town, they can talk about how they become a city, because you have to be a city first and then become a smart city, So there's still, it's a process. And a lot of the cities in the continent, they talk about smart cities, and for them, it's really building a city. It's not building a smart city. And so my suggestion is that these mayors, they need to look at a structured program for migrating and moving from point A to point Z. And it has to be a plan over time. It has to be monitored. It has to be done by an independent person, because internally, if they try to do it themselves, they would never be able to succeed. They need to follow a structured methodology and approach that is linked to the global approach, and for them to move and create a better life for its citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Final words from you, Jatin.
Thanks. So from my point of view, of course, the smart villages, and that's something that needs to be developed and made into into projects across Africa, not only Africa, across Asia. There are many places around the world which needs that sort of technology and initiatives. Yeah, so from my point of view, I think infrastructure is really important. It's also important to have the citizens on board with whatever smart city projects you're doing, and you have to educate and engage the community from that point of view, and be socially inclusive for all the population, whether it's elderly, whether it's young children. Everybody needs to be part of that process and brought together through that smart city program.
Thank you. Thank you. Kelvin, final words from you?
Yeah, I think from my side, the idea of a smart city is to make the livelihoods of citizens easier. So from the African perspective, I think a step-by-step approach would do. For example, if a rural town is thinking of becoming a smart city, they need to look at the basics, put in the basics. For example, how do you take care of the energy problem? By putting in sustainable energy solutions, you are able to sort out the energy problem. And another thing is in Africa, the education levels in many of the rural areas are quite low. I remember I was invited by the government to go to the Northern Cape of South Africa to give a conference to facilitate a workshop on e-government and knowledge management in the IT in the fourth industrial revolution. And when I just looked at the people who were in attendance, I told myself I'm going to have trouble here. So the people didn't understand basics about what they are doing and how IT is going to complement whatever they are doing. Now imagine going to such kind of people and telling them things about smart cities. So we need to start understand our context, use a step-by-step approach, educate our people, put in the basics, put in the necessary infrastructure, and then move at our own pace. We cannot suddenly say we want to be Barcelona. It will take some decades, because we need a dedicated strategy, a strategy that is informed by everybody who is involved in smart cities. And this I'm talking about social inclusion of everybody. A smart city should not be preserved for a few individuals, but everybody who is in the environment. Thank you.
Thank you too. I could also came examples on my mind while listening to you, and while I've been traveling in Madagascar, in rural Madagascar, and talking even about smart village. It's something that's so far in the future there, but that's obviously a topic that we can be talking all afternoon about it. Gentlemen, I very much would like to thank you for joining in today, for sharing your experience. Like I said, your presentations, these recordings will be shared with after that, and will be seen, all the discussion, recorded discussion will be seen by a lot of people right after that. I would like to have a break, a 5 minutes break. I believe everybody knows for what. Let's break, let's stay here in 5 minutes, be back. We have a very interesting program in the afternoon. We have, I'm sure that 3 of the speakers are joining us. We have from Saudi Arabia, Muhammad Shalan. Maybe he will tell us probably something for the Neom city. Maybe we will have from Egypt, Mr. Ahmed Abdelwahab, who's joining us from Vodafone Egypt. And we have Ivan Reutner from Royal Haskoning in South Africa. Ivan will pick up and continue from private sector developer perspective on vehicle-to-vehicle communication and mobility solutions. 5 minutes break, don't leave. We're back in 5 minutes. Welcome back. I hope those were good 5 minutes for everyone. I would like to welcome everyone back. Short break, but like I promised, we'll catch up with the time. This second session for the second day of Africa Smart City Digital Transformation Conference, the first conference within the frame of Africa Digital Week. I hope you enjoyed the very first session. I'm saying one more time, everyone, you'll be receiving the recordings, the presentation. You'll be able to get in touch through our LinkedIn groups and so on and so on. I believe with us already are our afternoon presenters and panelists. I introduced them very briefly just before I announced the break. We have here Mohamed Chalan, Head of Technology, Omar Kassem, LSA Group, Karat, Real Estate Development, Saudi Arabia. We have with us Ivan Reutner, who's a leading professional in smart mobility from Royal Haskoning, DHV South Africa, and we have Ahmed Abdelwahab joining us from Vodafone Egypt. I would like to just make sure that all the gentlemen are with us. I see Mohammed is with us.
Yes, I am there.
Hello, Mohammed, and we will be, as we spoke before that, we will start with your presentation. We will start with you this afternoon. Your presentation with the title Unique Value Generators for Smart Cities in Africa. Mohammed, if you're ready, you can share your screen, your presentation.
Okay, let me do that.
We can go ahead.
Okay, so you can see my screen now?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
You can make it a full screen.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this. It's really an opportunity to tell something about Africa in particularly, and about also what we have done in Saudi Arabia for some activities. So thank you very much. I'll start actually to think the presentation will be about the unique value generation of smart cities in Africa. And I am Mohammed Shalan. I am the head of technology for Aqarat Real Estate, which is one of the master developers here in Saudi Arabia. I have just published a book about
Mohammed,
yes.
If I just interrupt you for a second, if you can go a little slower so we make sure that everyone understands, and because not everyone is a native speaker. Thank you.
Fine. So my name is Mohammed Shalan. I'm the head of technology for Aqarat Real Estate, which is the major developer here in Saudi Arabia. We have been in this business since long time, and today we are moving into smart cities. Also, I have published a book recently about the innovative and agile contracting for digital transformation and Industry 4, which is directed somehow to smart city contracting and how we manage this kind of information. My agenda actually today, because we are in the pandemic area, so that everyone is talking about the pandemic, so I need to plant the hope, how we will start and how smart cities will plant the hope and how we can deliver value. This is one thing. The other thing is why Africa is unique actually in terms of how we make a smart city and how we build smart city there. The third thing, we are talking about some use cases and how we build a case study or a use case for smart city in certain places. I will talk somehow about emerging technologies, and in these emerging technologies, I need to tell what emerging technologies can be beautiful for us and can you be usable. Then I will have to talk about the 10 steps to build a digital transformation project. In Planting Hope, actually, we see that there have been a lot of issues in COVID-19, but of course, there was a lot of benefits. For us, for technology people, we see that everyone is now recognizing the value of technology because everyone is looking for sustainable city. Everyone is looking for to have not curfew for a whole country. It can be for certain locations. So all of this actually will help us in technology will help us in this regard. Additionally, what we see actually, there was a lot of Industry 4 restructuring or opportunities where we help in removing this pandemic, in tracking the people who have this, and helping people. So there was a lot of things actually good in what we have. So there's bad things, of course, but there is good things, and also always we need to plant the hope. This is my attitude. What we have done actually, for example, in the previous, there was a kind of pandemic in 1918. It lasts for 2-3 years as well. And we see the same pictures. We see people who are wearing masks. We see people in buses sanitizing the buses and something like this. So it was same. And out of this pandemic, as well as the previous industrial revolution, we see that there was an increased interest in public health problems. There was localization of services. There was new rules for building and for ventilation. So out of every pandemic, we will have opportunities coming similarly for technology. This is, for example, Sydney. This is between 1932 and between 2017. We find how these technologies, how the 3 previous industrial revolutions have affected us. And here in Africa now, when we are talking about Africa, we are talking about place that will have a lot of potential. Because in here, as you see in the statistics, we see that by 35, we'll find half of the population will be urban. And all this population will need a lot of services. And after that, and beyond that, the urban numbers are increasing. So that we need to have an opportunity to build new cities and new services. When we are talking about this, I'm talking about two concepts: the smart city as well as the resilient city. When you are talking about a smart city, then we are talking about how we can help in technology, technology can help us in the economic development, in the urbanization, helping people, making life easy. But also we need to have it like a kind of sustainability. Sustainability, because for example, when we have analogy with humans, the human cannot live with just a body. He need a heart, he need a mind, he need a spirit. And in the same methodology and in the same mechanism, we'll find that we need this for the cities. So our cities will need to be economical scaling. We have a lot of kinds how we manage the economy. How, in case there's a curfew or there's something, we can manage certain areas rather than having a lot of issues. We need to control everything. We need to have a kind of governance so that we can control and we can take control in case of any problems. The society itself, it's very important we get people involved. We train people. We help people doing a lot of activities and engage with our activities, because it's not a matter that we are just building a city. We are building a city, but at the same time, we have to have the society engaged. The environment, we are talking about smart cities that will talk for some time. And in case for this, we need to sustain it for different years, for multiple years. So it is really very important that we think about the environment, about the new generations. So this is the same analogy between humans and between the cities. Similarly, when we are talking about in Africa, we have opportunities. And the reason for this, we have multiple technopoles actually in Africa that can be developed easily into smart cities. And it's on outskirts of every city or a lot of cities in Africa, we have this kind of technopoles. And this happens, for example, the United States. The Silicon Valley itself, it was an example of a technopole that was developed and moved into a smart location. We have a lot of technology companies there, and we are driving technology. And I think this will happen someday soon in Africa as well. Here is the map, and we have a lot of technopoles in Africa. I think part of them or a lot of them will be moving, inshallah, soon into smart cities and resilient cities. And while we are talking this, actually, we have some things that's unique for Africa. In Africa, I have been visiting Africa for different times, and some cities or some countries, they don't have the burden, for example, of the legacy infrastructure that we have in other cities, like in Europe. In Europe, you have a lot of there is a burden actually of the legacy infrastructure. You have to remove some infrastructure, or you have to do a lot of activities because it's very crowded, or there is some restrictions. But in Africa, it's usually white land in some areas. You can go and build your projects in very good manner without that issues. Also, in case of governance and in case of complexity of rules of political issues, you will have that in Africa. You can find some movement and some protection without the happening like this burdens of rules and regulation that's very tough or something like this in other countries. We can look also in Africa is moving because of for smart cities. It can be like satellite cities where you can build a smart city there and connect it with transportation. You don't need to have to build it on a town or self if that's existing. For this, for example, we have mobile generation. The mobile can reach everywhere. Similarly, for the power generation. The power generation today can be done on solar systems and renewable energies, so we can build a smart city easily without having a lot of issues. Additionally, we have like people there. People are changing in Africa, and we have a lot of efforts being to engage people. So in this, I think Africa is on an edge of a new revolution in cities and in housing. And we see this actually in multiple countries that's coming. And when we are talking about smart cities or about, we are talking about not only elite city for certain people. We are talking about cities for everyone. Everyone will be start working in these cities. We will find a lot of opportunities coming for everyone. And in this also, it's a kind of sustainability. So we can sustain the business and we can sustain people who are working and make it for 20, 30 years that are coming. So it is very important. The community itself, the community is very important, that we see resilient community who are working with different stakeholders in different locations, in different countries even, so that we can build an ecosystem that is sustainable. So we have to take care that smart cities is for everyone. It's not for certain people. And when we are talking about this, we are talking about, it's not only technology. We are talking about technology aspects. We have new technologies, but the same, we have some kind of institutional aspects that we are taking about, or we are talking about, and we have huge human aspects that we need to take care about, because it's about people. When we are talking about smart cities, it's not about technology. It's about people, how we add value to people. And this is very important. Today, actually, we see that different countries or different cities in different maturity levels. We cannot say a single case, okay, we are traveling to different locations. We see several smart cities in different areas. But of course, every case is unique. And in every case, you have to understand, are you in the inspiration phase? Are you in the evolving phase? Do you have some cities mastering? Do you need the full town or the full city to be resilient? Or just you are talking about certain locations, or you are talking about outskirts of a country or a city? So it is very important. It's case by case. So we have to understand and we have to plan carefully for smart cities. When we are talking about technologies, for example, we have this Gartner report, which is usually telling the technology, the smart technologies that we are using for smart cities. And of course, there are some technologies that will be maturing in a few years. Some technologies will die in a few years. So it is very important we take care about these technologies and we understand which technology to use. And in here comes the very important thing that we are talking about, which is we have these technologies, and a lot of my friends have talked about these technologies. So, but which technology we choose? This is very important. When we choose a technology, for example, we have IoT, we have mobile technology, we have smart parking, we have different technologies. But the important thing is how we think about this and to benefit. So, for example, when we have a city, when we are planning for a city, we start planning to thinking of the challenges that we have. In every country, in every city, we have different challenges from others. So we have to be careful and to take care about what we need to tackle in this. Then we size the opportunity, how we can solve this problem. Is it a problem that can be solved by technology? Is it a problem that can be solved by different issues? So we need to think about it. We move then to finding the relevant technology that will help us in solving this problem. And for example, here in Saudi Arabia, we have multiple locations that have been turned into smart locations, like in Yanbu Industrial City, like in Riyadh, we have some smart cities. We have it in Neom. So every case is case by case, and every case actually is different. And what kind of services and industries or something like this, and planning, it's different planning for every city because it's unique. Everyone is case by case. After that, we are using and building digital use cases. In digital use cases, we think which technology will be available for us and how we can utilize this. Later on, we will talk about the business case, how it will be feasible and how we can build on that. Here also, when we are talking, we have to think about the infrastructure for it. We are thinking about the physical assets, the connectivity, the flow, and the domains that we are talking about, services. So there is a lot of components that we have to tackle when we are planning for a smart city, and it will be a case by case for every country, for every location even, because this is what I said, that what we have here in Saudi Arabia. One important concept for this is what's called the value deconstruction. And I'm calling this actually because this is very important term for smart cities. In here, what we find actually, the smart city, it is like we are a developer, and usually we go for 1 million, 2 million square meters that we develop in 2-3 years, and then we quit out of this project. This is usually, but in here, for when you are running a smart city, it's totally different because you are talking about 20-30 years of operation. So you have to have a technology that is sustainable and that will help you for a long term. Then you are talking about, rather than 10 or 15 partners. You are talking about sometimes hundreds of partners who are working with you, and every partner will have certain things. You have a partner for IoT, you'll have a partner for sensors, you'll have a partner for connectivity. And because this is actually, you have to have the right time, how and when to engage the right partner. And your role as a master developer will be a kind of orchestrator about this kind of huge contractors. You are not talking about tens. You are now making about 100 contractors or even more. And in this also, you need to be very agile. Agile meaning that you need to take care how and when to have any service. For example, I cannot contract for an IoT product, for example, since the beginning of the project, because technology is just changing, and I have to take the right time to contract, and right time to deliver, and right time to install equipment, and right time to remove this equipment, and maybe and put new equipment. We see a lot of security issues. We have a lot of things. So it is very important how we tackle this, and we need to be flexible so that we can run the right technology at the right time from the right provider. This will take us actually to how we are planning this, how we are making it for every kind of technologies, for transportation, for others. We need to make it future planning, sustainability, how the people analytics will help us in making from one project to another project and from one to other. And of course, we need to be effective in spending our monies. We don't have huge monies, so we need to be very effective in spending the monies. And in here, we can say that we need to define clearly the purpose of the city. So for example, we have in Yanbu industrial city, it's defined and it is industrial city. So we have to tackle it. It is a smart city, but for industrial people actually. So it's different from, for example, in Riyadh, what we have for financial district, which is smart as well. So it's totally different. We have to define your purposes. Then you have to anticipate the future plans and how will happen or what will happen. After that, you will build the ecosystem that will help you. Build ecosystem, meaning that who will partner with you, who will provide the service, what services you will do, and who will be benefiting from that. After that, you need to arrange to solve short-term problems as well as long-term problems, because we don't have any project without problems. After this, we need to take care that we are talking about people, we are talking about national plans. So everything needs to fit into the national plans that we are in. We are not in silos. And in here also, it's very important to take care about some main concepts, like, for example, the 3 I's of smart cities. It is well instrumented. So we have to take care about the instrumentation we are using, about the interconnectivity, and everything will be intelligent. So you will be having, for example, a huge data that you need to handle and to benefit of it, because it's not, there is no meaning that you have this data and then you are not benefiting out of it. And of course, because we are caring about the sustainability, so we have to take care that everything can be recycled, because you know now it's not like you have the technology that will last for hundreds of years. We are talking about technologies that last for a few years. Then you have to replace this technology and to reuse this technology in other projects or to make it in other products. So it's, and we have to be very careful. Also, we need to reduce the cost associated with it. We need to reduce the power emissions associated with it. We need to optimize in other ways so that we can get sustainable city. One important concept actually is for financing the smart city. There's some people who are talking about banking the smart city, meaning that smart city itself, when you are hiring this smart city, you can find some partners who are long-term partners. It can be crowdfunding, it can be private funding, it can be international funding. So there is a lot of activities, but you have to have a business case, which is a very business case that is turning your smart city project into a bank that will give people the opportunity to share and to benefit from out of it. So it is very important how you plan your business case so that you can get people in. And for this also, we have talking about how to champion the public-private partnership. So even in here in Saudi Arabia, for example, which is a rich country, we have some kind of partnerships with public-private, either international or local vendors who are handling some projects or developing some parts. So this is very, very important actually. And also what we have is the value chain. it's very important. For example, we have service providers for data management. We have for telco operators. So it's very important actually how we build the value chain so that everything will get value out of this kind of projects. And of course, we need to find the good partners who will be helping us and reaching the value. And here, this is my last slide. Actually, I'll be talking about just a planning, 10 steps for planning for a smart city, just in summary of my presentation. So I will hear that first, we have to study the city. So as I tell, actually, it's a case by case. No two cities are similar. We will take care about other projects or other similar cities, but it's unique for us. So we have to take care about it. When we create smart city, we have a smart steering team as well from private and public sector, and sometimes from financial institutes, from international foundations, so that you can have a good steering committee, because this project is not a small project. It will affect everything, and a failure of such project will have a massive disaster actually. Rather than this, we have to identify the main challenges that we are having in this location, in this city, while building. Is it with people? Is it with financing? Is it with what? So it's very important. Collecting data is very important. How we collect data and how we manage and handle the data that we handling and seeing. Also, then we are talking about creating a strategic action plan, because this project, as I told, actually, it will be for a long time and will affect the national plans. Then we are talking about how to build a management map for this project. It's a project that will last for a long time, and we have to take care about it. Usually we implement some pilot projects. We will not go in a big project because we have to test certain points. Then we have to find pilot projects. We monitor and evaluate these pilot projects, and this is where the agility comes actually. In agility, you will be agile so that you can change the routes every time and make new dimensions and new routes and new directions for your journey. It's a journey. It's not like just something that's just a destination. So also we need to have some kind of capacity planning for stakeholders and with the stakeholders, so that we can take care about what we are doing and how these stakeholders will stay with us. Later on, we have to be very dynamic. So we have to have very good coordination processes. We have to be very dynamic, very agile, so that we can get the value out of these kind of smart cities. So that's actually from my side, what I was trying to tell about how we manage the smart cities. And there are some cases, I hope it's beneficial. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation, Mohammed. We will continue. I would like to introduce, without any delay, our next presenter, Ivan Reutener, who is a leading professional smart mobility in Royal Haskoning DHV from South Africa. Everybody knows Royal Haskoning. Ivan sent me quite a long personal presentation. I wanted to pick a couple of things to say about him, but Ivan, I think that it would be best if you make a short presentation of yourself, of your work, and then move on with your presentation and tell us what you have prepared for us. I'm sure it will be a better option.
No, thanks for that, Breslov, and I assume you can confirm that you can see my screen there.
Yes, we do.
Okay, excellent. So yes, so I'm Ivan Reutener. I'm a leading professional smart mobility at Royal Haskoning. And yes, I mean, it's the second session of today and the second presentation of today. Usually they say it's the graveyard shift, but I think listening to the other previous speakers, Professor Kelvin, Jabu, McDonald, Justin, and so forth, I think mine will dovetail exactly quite nicely in what they've done. And what we'll be discussing with you today is that what's the foresight, what's the innovation of smart mobility as well as renewable energy to dovetail it in the topic and the green energy of the specific presentations. The mobility level, especially the building blocks behind there, because all the speakers already just dotted what the building blocks are. And I want to show you how you can connect these building blocks, the lines in there, to achieve the outcome of smart mobility, renewable energy, green energy, and so forth. And I will also show you some practical examples that we've done in Botswana and in Pretoria. Then what's the next level of the smart mobility, smart charging, vehicle to everything connection? And then I will conclude with the building blocks and the comments that the journey that I will be taking you through right now. Now let's start with foresight and innovation. Popular Mechanics magazine published in 1928 what the future city will look like. They imagine different cross sections of the future city with many traffic levels, pedestrians on top, faster moving vehicles, and more heavy populated densities in commuting at lower levels, and so forth. And they also said that all these buildings will almost be half a mile high with external moving chairs to connect people. Well, in today's world, the largest building is Burj Khalifa. Almost, what's it, 825 meters. It's just over a half mile high, but it lacked the external moving chairs. But we're getting there. So the mobility level and building blocks, what are we looking for and what have we achieved to date? So as a first building block, I want to illustrate a practical example that we've done in Gaborone, Botswana. I've been heading up the task team to develop for Johannesburg in South Africa their ITS strategy, their framework for the next 5 years, what they will be doing. And after presenting that strategy to the city, we received a call from the Ministry of Transport in Botswana stating that they want a specific traffic signal for donkey carts. I was thought, wow, okay, so working now with technology and futuristic stuff, how can we implement it locally? And that's what also that Professor Kelvin said, what usually work in Europe or in America, not always work in the Africa environment, but with our local experience, knowledge, how can we tweak it? So what the ministry basically said is they've got this main freeway, north-south corridor, the A1, that's dividing the one village to the east and the farming land to the west. And they use donkey carts from the village to go to the farmland and then transport whatever the crops and whatever they need to do. As well as not every farmer or every person in the village can own their own donkey cart. So they've got almost an informal system, how they track it and they're lending their donkey carts out to their neighbors and that sort of thing. And that let me think about what can we do about it from a technology perspective while looking at the rural environment. So what we said is, here's a perfect starting building block for mobility as a service. How can we do that as part of a donkey cart fleet sharing system? So as part of this traffic signal dedicated to the donkey carts, we said, okay, we'll implement infrared detectors so that we can see and detect when a donkey cart is required to cross this busy freeway and give them sort of the green signal for the donkey cart driver. And there you can see the example of the donkey cart. Now, in Botswana, it's quite a large country, and they don't have optic fiber cables or microwave satellites everywhere. But they do have a lot of 2G coverage for your normal SMS and that sort of thing. They've got 3G coverage with limited in the main cities and so forth, but they're busy rolling it out and expanding the network. And as you can see, from a mobile communication perspective, that's already in place. So there's actually quite a lot of the population and citizens that already have smartphone and mobile communications available due to the fact there's no landlines or voice over IP and that sort of thing available. And that made us think to take that initial building block of an informal trust-based system. How can you in a rural area start upscaling it and make it more attractive to the people? So we're busy looking at the option of putting a satellite GPS tracking unit on these donkey carts, and obviously solar powered for that and that sort of thing, and then link it via the mobile network to the smartphone apps. So already there's various building blocks in place from government side, from private developer side in terms of the cell phone networks and so forth, and even the villagers themselves in the informal system, how they track and use the fleet of these donkey carts, how they interact with it, and we can start bringing those together. Another example was as an illustration of a building block is that we looked at a pedal and e-bike sharing scheme, a research project that we did with the University of Pretoria in South Africa. So in Pretoria, I mean, the area size is about, say, 690,000 square kilometers, 265 miles, more or less, with a population of 740,000 people. And we specifically looked in at the study area in the Hatfield campus, and that's where a lot of students and hostels are located, as well as tourists and government officials in terms of the embassies located in that area. So what we said is, let's do a small-scale pilot study and see what the appetite of the people will be. So we identified the study area, and we looked at specifically in terms of moving towards the smart mobility, smart transport. We linked the electric bikes as to the GPS tracking units, implement the bike sharing scheme and via our app, and the bike sharing kiosk and maintenance and so forth. And one of the specific outcomes was that the pre-users of the systems and how they traveled and so forth in that study area in Hatfield, and the post. And you can see there the blue block, which was basically people walking because they couldn't afford their own bicycle. Now that they can rent one only when they needed one, the bicycle usage increased. The people using their own car or motorbike also decreased. So they rather went to use more the bus shuttle services as well, and other public transport services, because we placed the kiosk also at the hub where they can use public transport, go with the bicycle option scheme from the kiosk, and travel towards then the Hatfield campus. So what's the next level then? I've showed you now the building blocks or possible building blocks in what's already available. But what's the next level in smart mobility and smart charging? If you look at South Africa as an example, more or less about 5,000 hybrid electric vehicles already exist. About 600 plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and in purely battery-operated electric vehicles is about 550. So you can see the landscape is growing. But how is it going to compare to the rest of Africa? If you look at the rest of Africa, as well as the Middle East, you can see that South Africa and Egypt is almost half of the electric vehicles is located there. Then you can see in terms of the Middle East and so forth, the UAE and Saudi Arabia also getting a large percentage of that, and then the rest is scattered in the rest of the Africa and Middle East. Take that into account and you link it now as a golden thread to the next slide. In terms of South Africa, where we have more or less 15 different OEM manufacturers and assembly points and plants in South Africa. Now let's compare that to the Netherlands and their charging infrastructure and their goal towards sustainable energy and use of smart charging. The Netherlands don't have any OEM manufacturer plants, none, but they are leading in the number of electric vehicle charging stations. You can see that the Netherlands compared to the China and United Kingdom, per 100 kilometers of paved road, the Netherlands is far ahead. And what are they doing? What lessons can we learn there, but implement back to Africa and our environment, as the previous speaker said? Now, this will take us to a concept of vehicle-to-everything charging. So you've got vehicle-to-vehicle communication, you've got vehicle-to-grid communication, your vehicle-to-pedestrian. But what I would like to focus on is the vehicle-to-your household home communication and vehicle-to-the-grid communication. And that is where your house and or the grid can charge your electric vehicle, but your electric vehicle can also then run your household in terms of load shedding, power outage, or shortage in the grid. And how do we achieve that? And utilizing our local green energy resources. So if we look at solar, in the Northern Cape, we've got just outside Postmansberg, the Jasper solar farm. Then in Uppington, we've got the Kai 1 solar farm. Locally, it's here already, operational. Then also, we've got in the Northern Cape, renewable wind energy farms. So we've got the Koabab wind farm and we've got the Kangas wind farm. So all operating separately at this point in time and sort of, if I can say, in silence. But let's take a deeper look on the various wind farms and how they can enhance the grid as well. This is now a typical profile of the wind and the wind characteristics in the Cape Town region. And you can see there during January, February, and March, the wind there, but you can see the amount of spike or the peak of the wind trends and the wind speed trends during your March, April, May, June, and July when it's at its highest, and then going down again over September, October, November, and December. Now, in South Africa or Africa, especially South Africa, southern parts, that April to August, that's our winter months. And in the winter months, our daytime is obviously less. So we've got less sunlight. Now you can see wind, excellent power generator at that point in time, but during our summer months, not as efficient, but the solar farms is again efficient. Now from a smart grid and smart energy perspective, renewable energy, let's combine the two. So what you can do now during the time of the year and the amount of grid energy required, you can now start populating and overlaying these two, where you've got wind generation high in the winter months and so forth, and in solar power generation mainly at the peak in summertime because of the more daylight time available, integrating that. So that building blocks of the solar farm and the wind farm already exist. But how can we take it further? As previously mentioned, I would like to focus on the vehicle-to-home charging and vehicle-to-grid charging. Today's standard electric vehicle with about, say, 20 to 30 kilowatt hour battery capacity, one parked vehicle can almost run 100 houses with electricity. If you take 500 of these electric vehicles and you combine it, you can almost replace an entire power plant. So now what you can do is you can charge your vehicle during off-peak periods when the energy grid doesn't need so many energy. You combine it with your wind and solar, your renewable energy, and that is what they call peak shaving and valley filling. So at the end of the day, when you've got that peak spike when you need energy, when people come to home or whatever, and they start overloading the grid, you can now start filling in that peak. You can use your smart charging, you can use your electric vehicle and so forth. And then at the end of the day, you can balance your infrastructure that you require and the additional power plants and demand distribution during the entire day. So that's what they refer to as peak shaving and valley filling. My last slide, just to conclude. So smart mobility solutions are entering Africa, but also smart city solutions like smart grid charging and so forth is already possibilities every year. I also showed you some of the examples, and there are more. If we had a day to discuss it, I only have 15 minutes, already overshot by 2 minutes. Sorry about that. But there is the possibilities. I showed you some building blocks in terms of the rural fleet sharing in Botswana, electric bike vehicle sharing, and how that can fill in the first mile and last mile of your daily travel commute. So, in essence, the building blocks are already in place. We, as a collective, just need to put it together like a Lego piece. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Thank you. Perfectly fine with the timing. Before I continue, I would like to make a small note, and I would like to introduce, as he joined us just a few minutes in the session, Mr. Hesham El Alaili from Egypt, who is here with us. I have to extend a short apology to him as he joined us a little later. I wasn't sure if he will join, though he told me this morning, but he will be with us right after that for a panel discussion. Mr. Hesham El Alaili, thank you for joining us. I will just give the word to our third presenter, as I know that you haven't presented a PowerPoint, though you will have your time and the word after that. And with that being said, I would like to continue with the next presenter, Mr. Ahmed Abdelwahab, also joining us from Cairo, from Vodafone Cairo. Few words, I wanted to just a very brief presentation of Ahmed Abdelwahab, who's coming with a more than 20 years experience in telecom and IT industry sector in Egypt and West Africa, in leading teams for data and development and design. Ahmed is now currently utilizing telecom and IT experiences with his electromechanical infrastructure experience to formulate operational models for smart cities. Ahmed, I think you can add something more to that. Are you with us?
Hello, yes.
Excellent, excellent. We have you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Preslav.
You can share your screen with your presentation. We're ready to hear from you.
Thank you very much for having me today. It's a good opportunity to present my views for smart cities. Let me share my screen.
Wonderful, we see you. You can just make it a full screen.
Yes. Okay. It's very useful discussions yesterday and today. I have attended most of the sessions. Today, all our panelists are talking about the same view for smart cities, and they see that it is the future of all cities that we have in the world and in Africa. So I will give some brief on smart cities because we are all presented the same definitions. So we will use in smart cities, we will use the data and technology to create efficiencies and improve sustainability, and create economic development and enhance the quality of life for factors for people living and working in the city. Smart city combines and shares all the data sets captured intelligently connected infrastructure and the people and vehicles to generate new insights and provide services that enable citizens to access information about city services. Also, it tackles the current global challenges such as climate change, scarcity of resources. Their claim is also it secure their the economic competitiveness and quality of life for urban population. So, what are the types of or the applications of smart cities? So. There are many sectors, according to McKinsey Global Institute, in the sector security sector. Smart cities can provide predictive policing, real-time crime mapping, gunshot detection, and smart surveillance. It can apply artificial intelligence techniques in emergency response optimization and crowd management and home security systems. Also, in the healthcare, we can have the remote patient monitoring, of course, lifestyle wearables, and they send the data to their doctors to continuously monitoring their health. Also, it can be very effective in the quarantines and in the infectious disease surveillance as we have in COVID-19 these days. Also, online care research and scheduling is very effective in healthcare. In the mobility, there are big application for smart cities. We can have real-time public transit information. Of course, autonomous vehicles, as my colleagues have said in their presentations. We can have congestion pricing. So if it's congested in some place, and you want to pass this place, so you pay toll tickets more than other places. Of course, smart parking and car and bike sharing are also good applications. And in energy, there is home energy automation systems, smart street lights, dynamic electricity pricing, and others. Also in the water field, they can have the water consumption tracking, leakage detection and control, smart irrigation, and the quality of water monitoring. Also the waste management, we have digital tracking and payment and optimization of the waste collection, as we will see afterwards. Also, we have the economic development and housing. We will have personalized education and online training programs, digital business tax link, and we can have digital business licensing and permitting. And on the community, we can have some community apps that would have engagement for the local civic and the local connection platforms that can connect the citizens with their cities. So in getting into some details of the applications, the smart surveillance here is automatic detection for it is utmost importance in the city network, and it automatically detects and alerts security and safety incidents in real time. So we can have three aspects. I will just go through because this is not the core of my presentation. I want to go to the operational model. So here it gives safety and accuracy and rapidity. So we'll have real-time quality image surveillance. Of course, we can save and search for these functions afterwards. It's 24/7 uninterrupted operation without manual intervention. And for accuracy, we have precise traffic status smart analysis. We have high reliability license plate recognition. It's not only that depending on human that they see the plate and they remember the numbers. Also, there is accurate moving detection and identification and face recognition. And for And for the rapidity, we have fast search using the plate number and face recognition, prompt event recognition if it is required, and of course immediate connection to relevant agencies when they requires intervention. And the smart lighting, we have if we use the LED bulbs in roads and squares and operating them on demand, we can have automatic fault reporting, reduces the maintenance cost, and of course full central control for operation. You don't need to go and intervene manually or using the human. This cost savings in consumptions at least 30% and improves the customer experience and services and the general safety. Also, we can have smart waste management. So bins to be collected not every day, but upon being filled. So this reduces the collection cost. You will not have missed pickups, and of course reduced overflows, and we can then have waste generation analysis and see the type of waste that we have, and this reduces the CO2 emissions as well. The smart parking, you can have the unattended management, parking guide, mobile payment, and bringing the end-to-end smart experience. And you find the garage by using application, and of course, and use some QR codes and face recognition as well. And also with the smart irrigation, it works according to the temperature and humidity. So you are not watering the landscape except if you need. If there is some humidity and the temperature is low, then you can lower the amount of water that you are using. It saves 30% of the water and corresponding energy. So all these applications and others, they are using or developing huge data, and they need to be these data should be stored. So this gives us the first challenge, that how would we collect the huge data from smart city applications, store them, and then manipulate these data in real time to take appropriate decisions. So you have to have reliable and available sensors and touch points, and these touch points should be collected to data centers and in reliable infrastructure, and have the enough storage to get all these data for further manipulation, as we will see. So this, I see this is a challenge number one. The challenge number two, that how to develop effective data governance and operating models that balance privacy rights of end users with ensuring access to data to build a smart city solution. So if we go to smart surveillance, if I am a citizen in a compound or a neighborhood, I don't like to be tracked every move that I do. I'm monitored by cameras. So who would access these cameras? What if there is problem in the people who have access in this to these cameras and these data, and they use for personal interest of them? So this is a big challenge. And also the challenge number three, that all these applications require investments for smart cities. So who would bear these investments, and who would be keen and ready to invest in smart city applications and wait for the revenue afterwards, or the ROI? So from this we can have the framework that could be used in in smart city. So first we have the touch points for all the smart cities applications. You have smart lighting, waste management, smart meters, smart parking, smart irrigation, smart surveillance, and traffic management. All these could be used as touch points that you collect the data from them. And then these data should be gathered into data center and management systems that would manage all these applications in a central operation center. And the data center could be store all these data. And then we will have over and above this should be in the umbrella of a situational building awareness, where we have alarms monitoring and dispatch for all these data and these applications. We have two types of alarms: either alarms that should be dispatched to the security personnel or the maintenance guys of these services. So instead of they just take rounds over the city, they go to the fault specifically. Also, we have to secure the sustainable operation of these systems inside the data center and inside the and for the applications themselves. Also, we can have a change management process that any activity that would take place in the city, either digging for new lines or putting new for gas or any utilities. So this should be done within the umbrella of this system, and with approvals and impact and risk for these activities. Also, because we have active systems, and this point of customer privacy that I have mentioned before, we should introduce cybersecurity. So it's not only the physical security in the normal cities. We need to define who would have the rights to access the data. Even though they are from the personnel that they are managing or operating the smart city themselves. And also we have to secure the data from being hacked from outside of this operation center. Over and above, we will have an AI platform, so where all these data that have been gathered and stored in our data centers we should do the data analysis for them, and in order to have the return on investment on these smart cities, because it's not only that we put the investment for having some applications. No, but these applications should be used to collect the data and to manipulate the data, and then use these data for further companies to invest and give services to the citizens and the community. Also, the energy analytics would be using the data we have collected from smart meters and from all the utilities in order to maybe we can regulate the the consumption and give incentives for people to use the power in or the electricity in off peaks in order to have load regulation in our energy generation.
Ahmed, if you, of
Yes.
course, sorry for interrupting. I would like to ask you to wrap it up, if possible, in a couple of minutes, so we can continue with the session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then and then we will be able to have the consumer behavior for using some utilities or some retail smart or smart retail, sorry, and this stuff, and these should be collected in community app, which is the connection between the city and the citizens. They can also use this community app in payment, in reserving and booking services as well. So we have to concentrate on two phases: the design and then the operation. So the design, we need a robust infrastructure for because the data will be reliable, and also the essential features that would be useful for the citizens. And when we design, we have to bear in mind the operation of this city in order not to have a high operational cost. And for the operations, we have to consider the automation and alarm clustering, because it's not right that we can have a lot of people who are operating the city, because we should do it smartly. We have to consider the cybersecurity and data privacy, as I said, and the change management process in order not to affect the services that we have already implemented in our application. And having said this, who would do the smart city? So if we have the three different players, the government or the real estate developer or the telco operators, who would be responsible for doing the smart city? So if we think about the government, they are powerful in policy making and regulations, but they have lack of funds and incompetence to implement such technologies. For the real estate developer, they have surplus in funds, but they don't have the competence to do such technologies. However, the telcos, they have surplus funds and the competence, but they are not focusing on smart cities still. They are focusing on providing the voice and data services and some digital services, but still smart cities is not of their concern till now. So I think they all need a tech company. The tech company could have surplus in funds and competence and the focus, because they are focused on these services. And also the government can invest or regulate in the tech company, or the real estate developer and telco also can invest or acquire such tech companies to implement the smart cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. I'm sure the slides were extremely interesting. I'm sure everyone will want to go back through the slides. I just wanted to say also for your information that this event is also live streamed in our closed channel in YouTube. So there are more people watching us, though they won't be able to join in the discussion, but they'll be still watching us. And with that, I would like to introduce one more time, as I already did seconds ago, our panelist, so to say, Mr. Hesham El-Aili, joining us also from Cairo, who is an executive president and CEO, senior advisor in digital transformation and smart cities. Mr. El-Aili, are you with us? I know you haven't prepared the PowerPoint, and you expressed your interest when we discussed that you will join us with a panel discussion.
Yes.
Maybe you can, I'm sure you can take the word first. Have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, up to you before we move to some questions.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you, Preslav, and thank you, everybody. It was very interesting following all these very interesting presentation. Just a small introduction about myself. I'm Hesham El-Aili. I'm a telecom engineer. I have more than 37 years in leadership in the telecom and digital transformation. I used to work or live in Paris with France Telecom for more than almost 30 years, and large part of it I was in charge of the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So I know quite well about Africa, where we have implemented a lot of greenfield, or we bought operators and started to operate there. Then I was the executive president of the telecom regulator in Egypt. So I know a lot of regulator and head of regulations in Africa, of course. And now I am doing consultancy business after I finished my mandate with ITU, ICANN, and of course a lot of projects in Egypt. I also member of the High Council for Digital Transformation in the country. And I am also member of the judge panel for the WCA, which is the Telecom Award for 2021. Just very few comments on all what has been said. I think I don't really have to add anything, except maybe just few words about the digital transformation itself. First, I believe digital transformation is something that is related to everybody and not only to technical people. And I think this is the first track. Digital transformation is not related to only IT guys or telecom guys and etc. I think it is related to everybody in the society. And digital transformation, it is a mindset, a change in the business model. We need to understand that over the decades, the past decades, all business were run on a vertical sectors. Now with the digital transformation, we are moving from verticals into horizontal. And by this, we need to get organized differently. And the most challenging part as well is, I would say, is to change the culture. I have seen it before, and I think this is the most challenging part in digital transformation, is changing the culture. It is not only a technical issue. Of course, we use the technology to achieve the goal of digital transformation, but it is not only a technical issue. It is more toward business model change in business model process and etc. And as well, digital transformation is not an automation because it is one of the very well-known track is that people believe that digital transformation is just an automation. No, it is a complete process change, process re-engineering, and complete business mindset, different mindset. I believe in Africa, I believe in the leapfrog of Africa, because look to what happened in Rwanda and of course in other countries. So leapfrog, I think this is an advantage for Africa. I believe as well in renewable energy and solar energy, of course. So this could be as well a very positive point for Africa as well. However, we have to face reality. And I think this has been mentioned by many of the representatives. You know, smart cities, I heard a lot of people talking about smart cities and digital transformation, digital services, and etc. To me, smart cities without a very clear urban plan, you won't have a smart city. Without a clear urban plan, you won't have a clear ITS system, intelligent transportation system. So I think what I'm leading to is that we cannot expect from people in the governments in all these countries to change suddenly. However, what we really need, and I really strongly believe in this, we need a regulator body, a regulation body for the digital services. I strongly believe that we need to convert the regulation of telecom and that's IT into what we call digital services regulation. Because without this, you will not have the trigger and the governance rule and the way how to guide this toward digital services. And of course, digital transformation, 50% of digital transformation, as most of you said, is infrastructure. Infrastructure is very important and is very costly as well. So it needs a long-term investment. However, there are many ways as well to reduce this cost. I heard some presentation that they were talking about, as an example, Botswana and etc. They don't have a lot of fiber and etc. Yes, but other communication tools can be used. Don't forget about the low orbit satellite. Yes, some application requires some latency or very low latency, but most of the application, I think, can be working on the low orbit satellite, which could make a lot of change and for the need of infrastructure and etc. Of course, the 4G and maybe later on the 5G, but the 5G, at my opinion, is more for the industrial use. So I really strongly believe that it's very important to move toward a regulatory body for the digital services. We need to see as well what we call it, all these things, how they get managed together. The RFID, the smart, you talked about some smart irrigation and etc. Cybersecurity, and by the way, the use of drones. The drones are now used many times in the digital services. How can we integrate this? How can we allocate specific IP addresses for the drones and etc.? So it's very important to get all this managed. And to get this managed, we need that regulatory body for digital services. Smart cities, you talked about smart cities. I would like to highlight, of course, smart cities. One of the main reasons is that we do a lot of cost saving or optimized costs, but as well, we can do a revenue generation in the smart cities. By the way, I have done the smart cities strategy and the implementation for the Talat Mustafa Group. It is one of the It is the largest, by the way, in the Middle East real estate developer. And I did this for a city called Madinati. It is a very large city. And one of the main issue was how can we get all these habitants, like I think I saw it in other presentation, accepting all these cameras, accepting all this new system, but it is to better manage their city, to get a better cost and to generate revenue for them as well. This was very important. And I think, again, don't forget at the end, and before I conclude, is the part of the culture change. The smart cities or the digital transformation, in order to succeed in digital transformation, we need to work very strongly on the culture change and how to raise awareness about people about what does digital transformation really mean and what people are going to gain from digital transformation. It is not just a mode or a action or something that will have it and 1 year and that's it. No, this is a trend and everybody going through to it. So we need to go it and we need to do it rightly. So I think to do it rightly is we need to focus not only on the technical part. There is a lot of technical issue and technology is only used as a facilitate this for digital transformation, but it is not IT. Digital transformation is for everybody. And again, before I finish, is that if you don't work in parallel on a clear awareness program about the culture change and the benefit of digital transformation and train people, give them session, video session and etc., people will not buy into it. And please, for IT people, do things, facilitate things, simple things. Because the trap is sometimes we do go for digital transformation, we do a website, etc., and we see that the application is very complicated. So people, instead of encouraging them using the electronic and the digital way, they will say, no, we don't need this. This is going to be very complex. So people in the IT need to simplify things. People in charge of digital transformation need to think about the process, how to simplify the process, not only to copy the existing process, not to automate, just an automation. This is all what I wanted to say in my discussion, and I hope this was clear to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your remarks and your notes and thoughts shared with us on that. We're 5 minutes behind the time, but I wouldn't want to let you go without a couple of questions at least. And this is a final session, putting it this way. Let's take another 10 minutes. And I would suggest I have exactly 2 questions, which are more like a general questions. We've been talking, the presentations this afternoon were extremely interesting. And I believe one major question comes even when addressing even to electric vehicles, addressing Ahmed to what he mentioned, very interesting, in smart surveillance and tracking systems in urban areas. Regulations. How is Africa going to tackle regulations in order to process all this and to adapt all these new models, new technologies? This is one question to all of you, coming based on your, of course, presentations. And probably as a final few words, I would like to hear from you. Like I said, it's a final presentation. How can Africa diversity in terms of cultural diversity, in terms of infrastructural diversity? We know I've been a lot in South Africa, in Sub-Saharan Africa, and Northern Sahel region, completely different. As much as they have similarity, they're also very different. How all this can be turned into advantage and Africa to start adapting the smart city model, smart city project. And not as probably many people in Africa think that smart cities are only for elites or like sort of rich societies, but smart cities can be for everyone, and every society in Africa, every country can benefit with that. I'd rather say let's start with Mohammed and go as we had a lineup, then with Ivan and Ahmed. I'm looking to hear your final thoughts on that. Gentlemen, Mohammed,
Okay.
the word to you.
Yes, from my side, I think Africa is a very good, they have a very good opportunity actually, because the regulations there can be moving easily rather than other complicated nations or something like this. So it's really very easy to have this opportunity. And because this is a green field in some areas, as I told you actually in my presentation, there is some areas you can put in the outskirts of the countries, of the cities, I mean. There is a kind of technoballs that is there. So it's very easy actually to put the regulations rather than the complicated. Even in Europe, for example, you'll find an infrastructure that is a burden, the old infrastructure as a burden for the regulation and for smart cities. But in Africa, because you have some areas, you have some locations, so it will be easy to pass these kind of regulations. So I think it's an opportunity for Africa, and it have an advantage and a leading edge on this. This is my perspective, actually.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Ivan.
Thanks for that question and the opportunity. I think the key for Africa, like they can leapfrog technology, they can also learn from policies and regulations from countries that already implemented. As an example, is that the policy is sort of the country government's goal, what they want to achieve with this. The regulation will state, this is how the rules of the game. This is how you're going to play the game. Now, fortunately in South Africa now currently, is the Department of Transport received a sort of funding from the German Development Corporation, GIZ, to start working towards these policies and regulations for electric vehicles, for smart cities and so forth. But the key is to learn from the mistakes of or the things that happened at other countries and how you implement it here. You don't want that rules and regulations to be so strong that it hinders development, it hinders innovation. However, yes, government's got the it's their responsibility to protect the citizens. You don't want anyone to nilly-willy go and invent something new, and some charging station gets overloaded, or it's electrocute someone in the street. That you don't want to have. But you don't have to make it so stringent that it hinders. And that's, for me, is key, is see what other countries did, engage with them, engage with the public. How can you take that lessons and bring it closer to home, to the benefit of all, and get all included in this whole thing? So that's just from my side, my comment on that one.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll pass it to Ahmed. Ahmed, are you with us?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, I think
to hear about the surveillance tracking systems. That's on
yeah.
legal.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. But I see that we can start from what others have reached. So when telcos want to provide some money transfer services, they use the regulations from the central banks in the countries they provide the service. So for smart cities, they should start from the regulations in the telco industry, because they already have in place the GDPR, the customer privacy regulations, and the international law for telecommunications. So this should be our start point. And the challenge is that for real estate developers in a country like Egypt, and maybe in others in Africa, they don't have these regulations in place. So they do the service, and it depends, as Mr. Hisham said, that it depends on the culture of the inhabitants and residents and the citizens, if they accept or not. So in some private cities, some customers or residents, they complain that the cameras is concentrated or having the view on their private garden, maybe. And when they go to the company, they can see that it is I'm not sure, it's blocked inside the surveillance operation center. But the problem is, who would have the administration rights to remove this blocking? So they should sign and be abiding with the law of customer privacy, that they even the personnel who are working on these systems, they don't have the right to remove this blocking of the views of the cameras. So this should be the same as the telecommunication law and the GDPR. If they access the data of customers, they can be imprisoned. So we need these regulations on ground. So I think a forum like this should be organized for the telco regulatory authorities in the countries in Africa, because we should get on board and get educated to present these laws and these regulations in the countries. Thank you.
You're absolutely right when it comes to the telecom industry, and I think with a lot of foreign telecoms operating in African countries, even the national security issues can be raised here. This can be a whole conference, I'm sure, speaking about regulations on that. Overall, my experience, I've traveled Africa from right to left and from top to down. I think that majority of people, not only in Africa, but everywhere in the world, would be fine with the regulatory and legal challenges, as long as this is increasing, these new solutions, these new services are increasing the quality of life, making life easier, making life better, more accessible to services, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm not talking about Cairo or Johannesburg, I'm talking about Africa in general, and really more like even urban areas and so on and so on. All right, and with that, Mr. Hisham El Alaili, I think you are in the best position to say a few final words before I bid farewell to everyone who's watching.
Okay, thank you very much again. I think I am in agreement with all what has been said. And for regulation, again, in my view, I fully agree with Ivan, is that regulation should be to simplify things, to encourage and to control, but not too complex and do things very complicated. And by doing this, I think it's for regulatory bodies, they need to go through other regulators who have gone through this experience and do some twinning programs and etc., where they can learn and know what problems to avoid, I would say. However, I think in order to do this regulation, and unfortunately this hasn't been yet done in any of the African countries, including Egypt, including South Africa, is we really, to tell you what, it is just a power struggle. If you do this, you will take some power from others and you will put it in another body, and no one is ready to accept this. And this is the change in culture. To me, the easiest way to do this regulation is, yes, to take the telecom bodies of regulation and the IT bodies and the media bodies and try to merge them. And make one entity in charge of what we call it regulation of digital services. This is, to me, is the way to go. But it's easy to say, it's very difficult to implement, and blindly, I'm telling you, because there is a lot of power struggle. People, they don't want to lose power. So people will resist into this, but this is the way to go. Thank you very much.
Exactly, my thoughts with that, regulations, and this is the biggest barrier. I talked to a lot of companies, foreign companies, who are looking to invest, already investing, operating in Africa. Regulations are the biggest barrier for many investors when they're choosing a market to come and to try to invest. I know so many projects. I operate in the renewable sector before, so many projects that after 2-3 years of investment, and Egypt, including Egypt, you remember the big bidding 4-5 years ago, announced the big bid for like what was it, the big 100 companies for renewable energy projects for solar. That was changed entirely by the government that came after that, and so on and so on. Gentlemen, long topic. Yeah, please go ahead. Final.
This was just for the netting. Yes, I fully agree. If you don't have a clear rules and clear regulation and very clear law, no investor will come to you, because this is very, and for the one that you pointed, yes, there was an issue about the netting for the energy, and this was the most important part for investor to come.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. My colleagues are just joking, sending me a text message that the captain of the ship that just blocked the Suez Canal and is causing billions of damage on world trade was actually watching the African Digital Week, and that's why he wasn't paying attention probably. But that to finish on a smile. Thank you. I would like to wrap up the first African Digital Week. That was a 5-day event. For those of you who were with us today or yesterday, you know about the Smart City event, but actually we hosted 10 conferences, 2 live stream conferences, very successful FinTech event took place on Tuesday and Wednesday, 8 offline conferences, all in total. Africa Digital Week, I believe, hosted over 200 presentations, all this in recordings. Now, after the event, it has been either watched in the YouTube channels, in the LinkedIn channel, or live in Zoom. And all this will go to hundreds, probably over 1,000 companies that has purchased the whole package of African Digital Week in advance. I would like to thank you for being part of this. I wanted to say it was a shy start, but I don't think it was a very shy start. I know a lot of people will be seeing that, so I'm talking to everyone. Gentlemen, thank you for the contribution, for the commitment. We're very grateful to have you here with us today and yesterday. I would like to thank to the sponsors, of course. It cannot go without this. Timedix, Tendrick, our sponsors from South Sudan, Mgurush as well, who joined this first event. And with that, I would like to bid you farewell, to wish you good luck wherever you are. You can follow us on worlddigitalweeks.com, see what's coming. Asia Digital Week is coming in 3 weeks. Join there, write us at any time, get in touch. And we're looking forward to seeing you next year, hopefully live somewhere meeting in Africa. Thank you one more time with that. Have a great day and great weekend to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.